Real estate is an awesome tool for building wealth. And one of the largest expenses that comes with real estate is renovations. We've done a few renovations now and we've made plenty of mistakes. So in this video, we want to give you guys the 5 mistakes to avoid to save you time and money in your next renovation. So stay tuned.
Hi guys, I'm Tassine.
And I'm John. Welcome to Millennial Fire, where we give you guys practical tips on reaching financial independence and early retirement. So let's jump right into it. So mistake number 1 is over-renovating. So what does it mean to over-renovate? This is whenever the additional cost of the renovation doesn't provide more value. So the value depends on the type of real estate investment you're into. We're into rental real estate, so our value comes from how much a tenant is willing to pay for rent. But if you're into flipping houses, for example, your value comes from how much more you can sell the house for. So an example of over-renovation can come down to something as simple as choosing a stove. As you guys all know, there are plenty of stoves out there. We can go and get the cheapest possible stove and spend $300, and it may not have that many features. But we prefer in our rentals to have stoves that range around $600 to $700, so they can have stainless steel and have different heating options. We believe that a tenant will be willing to pay more for that, so we don't mind spending that additional $300. But there's not a benefit of me getting the stove of my dreams, which would be a Viking stove, and paying thousands of dollars to have this stove in a rental when the tenant may not pay more rent for that. So how do you avoid falling into the trap of over-renovating? Well, first we recommend that you start with a detailed plan. Just get a pencil and pad, or even write it into your phone. Walk through your home and plan out the renovations that you feel like will bring you the most value. And after this, prioritize necessities versus the nice to haves. Necessities are things that you need in this house in order to get value from it. So for example, if your house has no functioning toilets, you should worry about that before putting a new backsplash up in the kitchen. So prioritize what are necessities. A great place to get some of these necessities is in your inspection report. Go through your inspection report and make sure you knock out all of those critical items first before you start adding those nice to haves on the list. So the next thing you can do to avoid this is to have a budget and stick with it. Before you start a renovation, make sure that you have a solid budget that you plan to stick to. And another thing you could do to avoid over-renovating is keeping your emotions out of it. It's really exciting to renovate a home, to turn something old into something new. If this renovation is truly for investment purposes, don't let your emotions affect that bottom line. So an example of an over-renovation that we've done is with our duplex. And this is a great example because the inside of these 2 units match exactly. On one side of the duplex, we were convinced that tearing down a wall and extending the granite countertops would help us get more rent. And we got someone to move in and they were willing to pay a great price for this unit. But then a few months later, when we rented out the other unit that didn't have the wall torn down, we realized that people were willing to pay the exact same price without the wall being torn down. So we paid thousands of dollars to have this wall torn down. And granted, it looks beautiful, but that didn't bring us more return on our investment. And so that's money that could have went elsewhere in our investment journey.
So we just want to pause for a second to ask you guys to please hit that like button if you're enjoying what you see so far. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so that you can be notified whenever we release videos. So mistake number 2 is overpaying contractors. A contractor is a person or a company that undertakes a contract to provide materials or labor to perform a service or to do a job. So when we're talking about overpaying contractors, there are many contractors out there, and the quality of these contractors can vary greatly. And so some contractors out there are worth every penny that they charge for the job that they complete. But there are contractors out there that may try to take advantage of you and may charge additional costs unnecessarily. So how do you avoid this? First thing is to never reveal your budget. We've done this a couple times and we've noticed that the quotes that come in after we reveal our budget are almost exactly the dollar amount that we provided them. And it could be just that they were trying to work with our budget, but it could also mean that they know we have this much money to spend, so they want to take every cent of it. And so if you don't reveal your budget, you can see what their honest quote is and you can decide what services you want to go with versus what services you don't need. Another way to avoid overpaying is requesting that the quote have a line-by-line item of all the services and materials with the costs associated with these services and materials. Getting a line item quote can help you remove the unnecessary items and to stay in line with your budget. Another way to avoid overpaying is to offer to buy materials. And if your contractor decides that it's easier for them to just buy it themselves, make sure that you're an active part, because you want to make sure it's a good quality and you want to make sure that you're not being overcharged for the materials that they use.
So now we're at mistake number 3, and that's hiring a contractor before vetting them. Vetting is the process of making sure that somebody is qualified to do their job. So why is this important? Well, it's important because when you don't vet a contractor, you can run into a ton of issues, ranging from paying a lot more money than expected, taking a lot more time than expected, or maybe even your renovation being done and not being done up to the standards and the quality that you were expecting. And in the worst case scenarios, this could even lead to lawsuits. So how do you avoid this? Well, the first step in avoiding this is to make sure that the contractors that you get are licensed and insured. A contractor's license is basically your state's way of saying, hey, this person is qualified to do this job. They have experience in this job and they've proven themselves to the state. The insurance portion of this means that if something goes wrong on the job, if somebody gets hurt during the job, that you're not liable yourself, but that the contractor's insurance will take care of that issue.
And I just want to add that working as a contractor without a license in some states is actually illegal. And if you knowingly hire somebody that is not licensed, you are taking them on as your employees, and you can be liable for any injuries or damages that occur from the work that they do. So hiring an unlicensed contractor is something that you definitely never want to do.
The next important thing to do with vetting your contractors is to make sure that they have warranties on their work. A warranty is just a contractor's way of saying that they guarantee their work for a certain amount of time, and if anything happens within that time period, that they will come back and make things right. So if a contractor doesn't give a warranty, in our opinion, that means that they don't trust their work. And if they don't trust their work, then why should you? So once you've made sure that they're licensed, insured, and that they give warranties for their work, now you can start to look at reviews. You can go on sites like Google, Home Advisor, the Better Business Bureau, and look at reviews from work that they've done in the past. Contractors that have a history of doing great work typically will have great reviews. Many contractors now have websites and they post pictures to Google, or the reviewers post pictures to Google and show the work that they've accomplished. Make sure that the pictures you see meet the quality of what you expect in your project. Next, an awesome tool for vetting a contractor are recommendations. But when it comes to recommendations, we lean strongly on the rule to trust but verify. And so, yes, take recommendations from other contractors, from friends, from family, from other investors on contractors. But don't just take the recommendation alone, just allow it to be a step in your entire vetting process. To give you guys an example of how only trusting a recommendation could go wrong, in our last renovation, we took a recommendation for a painter and it was horrible. The job was horribly done. We had to go and buy paint ourselves and redo a lot of the project on our own. He threatened to put a lien on our house. And when this guy started the job, we didn't even know his name. We didn't know his business. We knew no information about him.
We didn't do any of these vetting processes that we are recommending that you guys do. And so we definitely regret not doing that, because
100%.
It could have saved us a lot of money and time and headache.
And this failed recommendation taught us something else about vetting. You always want to make sure that the contractor that you get has experience or specialization in the job that's being done. With this same painter that we were recommended to use, he was also supposed to install ceiling fans. And due to the way that the job was going with the paint, we asked him not to and told him we would get that handled. So we called our personal electrician, and he came in and started to look at the job that the painter had started. The fans weren't put together correctly, and the wires that were about to be run were the wrong wires. So we also learned from this that you want to make sure that the contractor understands the scope of work and they have experience in that scope of work.
So now we're at mistake number 4, which is making the final payment prematurely. And why is this a big deal? Well, when you pay a contractor the full payment for a job before they've completed it, you've removed their incentive to do a thorough job and to even do it in a timely manner. Now that you've paid them in full, they can pick up other jobs, and your job is no longer the priority because there's nothing tying them to that job. So how do you avoid this? Normally, when you come into a contract, there is an agreed amount that they require for you to pay upfront, which is usually a percentage of the deal. And so make sure in that agreement that it's clear that the final payment will not come until the job is completed. Make sure that you do a thorough walkthrough after the job is completed and everything is up to satisfaction. And after that is done, that is when you make your final payment. Now, sometimes when you do a walkthrough, there might be little things that you see that need to be fixed, and there are going to be contractors that will try to persuade you to still pay because it's so little, and they'll be able to knock it out in the next couple of hours. But no matter how little the job is that needs to be completed, make sure it's completely done before you give them their final payment.
Which brings us to our next point, which is mistake number 5, rushing the final walkthrough. The walkthrough is the time that you take after the job is completed to make sure that everything was done to your expectations. So why is it a big deal to rush the final walkthrough? Well, similar to mistake number 4, if you rush this final walkthrough and you make that payment, then it's going to be difficult to get those issues addressed after the final payment has been made. So how do you make sure you have a great final walkthrough? Well, first, you want to make sure that you take your time with the walkthrough. We actually recommend that you request 24 hours for your final walkthrough. This gives you plenty of time to make sure that your expectations have been met. So next, we recommend that you go through your line items line by line and make sure that every single one of those lines have been met to your expectations. So while you're going through these line items, we recommend that you give these renovations a test drive. So if you had a shower installed, take a shower. Make sure everything works correctly. Make sure there's hot water there. Make sure the water pressure is done correctly. We actually had a renovation that we did an entire renovation for thousands of dollars and realized after that there was no hot water there. If we would have to just follow this step, we would have been able to catch this in the beginning and not have to pay an additional amount of money for a plumber to come back out. And if you do find an issue during this walkthrough, let the contractor know so they can come back and fix it, and let them know that you will need to have another walkthrough after that issue has been fixed. That additional walkthrough doesn't have to be 24 hours. You use your discretion. If it's a small task that needed to be done, it may not take 24 hours to verify, but make sure you have another walkthrough. So these are the 5 mistakes that we've learned from so far in our renovation experiences. So we're really hoping that they can save you time and money in your renovations. As usual, if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and that subscribe button for us because it really, really helps us out. And also, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Leave a comment below or hit us up at our email. And with that, we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys next time.